If you followed our previous Tekno RC vehicle builds, you'll know we've built several of these high quality differentials, and to be fair, there's little difference here with the Tekno RC SCT410SL Kit Bag A. Before we get stuck into Kit Bag A, note that we will also need our bag of fluids and grease. In particular, we'll need the 30,000 weight oil along with the black grease. Okay, so now we're ready for the contents of Bag A. Parts to note here include the new heavy duty differential outdrives, which have less material removed for improved durability and impact resistance. That said, we'll get straight on with the construction. And we'll start with the main diff cup, where we'll apply a little bit of grease to the inside recess where the O-ring will eventually sit. Next, grab an outdrive and apply some grease around the groove on its neck, before sliding it through the bottom of the diff cup. With one of the two supplied O-rings greased, placed into the neck of the outdrive and pushed down into the bottom of the diff cup, which we pre-greased a moment ago. Now we can lay one of the two differential shims down on top, before inserting one of the two outdrive pins into the hole in the neck of the outdrive. Again, you'll need some needle nose pliers here to help. Next, I like to get a few drops of oil into the empty cup here, before dropping the first gear into place. And with the gear sitting flush in position, give the outdrive a turn to verify the gear is in place nicely. With that done, I like to fill the cup with a little more oil, just enough for the first gear to be almost covered, and let it rest for a moment while we move on to the next step. So now we're ready for our gear set. With the differential cross pin in hand, proceed to feed each of the 4 smaller gear pins into each end, with the teeth facing inwards, making sure they all turn freely before dropping into the previously prepared differential cup, lining up with the grooves in the cup, so that the outer gears mesh with the bottom gear. At this stage, all gears should be meshed nicely with the bottom. Again, give the outdrive a turn, being very gentle, as there's nothing holding the gear set securely down at this stage, and all gears should turn nice and smoothly. We can now top off with more oil, trying to get into all the tiny gaps until all gears are just about covered, around 1mm from the top, leaving just enough space for the final gear to rest above. We then place the cup to the side for the moment now for the oil to settle, and we turn our attention to preparing our spur gear. Just as we did with the diff cup, we begin by inserting some grease into the O-ring notch of the spur gear, as well as around the notch within the neck of the remaining outdrive. Next, the outdrive goes through the spur gear, wiping any excess grease as we go and using it to grease the O-ring, which now gets placed around the outdrive and into position by the spur gear. After which we place the final shim into position on top and push through the remaining outdrive pin to keep everything nicely in place. All we have left now is the small gasket seal, which we need to coat with grease on both sides before placing into position around the top of the diff cup. Now we proceed to seal the differential, although we need to be careful to not only line up the screw holes without moving the gasket from position at all, but also to ensure the outdrive pin is seated within the top gear. Screw down the first 2 screws opposite to each other, although do not tighten just yet, and then do the same with the 2 remaining screws. Finally, a little at a time with each opposing screw, tighten into place, taking care not to over tighten, just enough so that they sit snug. Over tightening will not only cause the internal gears to bind up. Considering the spur gear is plastic, you don't want to squish one side of the spur gear and deform it slightly in comparison to the other. And that's it, first bag complete. Center differential built with the precision and high quality we've come to expect from Tekno. Place it to one side for now though, and I'll see you in the next part in the series, where we move on to bag B.